Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Viral Hit Season 1, Episode 9. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, I also want to talk about the fact is, I was surprised this episode dropped just because I was kind of under the impression there might have been a break in between the episodes. I talked about it, I checked, there were no dates for episode 9, so I didn't know if the last few episodes needed to be finished or something. Whatever the case may be, I'm just going to stop talking because I was like, oh, episode 8's the season finale. It's not, because there's 12 episodes. Oh, well, there's going to be a break in between. There's not, because whatever, that's just the me thing. But anyway, getting into the episode itself, we are picking up in the aftermath of Taehoon losing. I love the conversation between Hobin and Snapper, which, Hobin's a little more wow, Taehoon, after everything, having dealt with a whole bunch of different bullies, he's actually not as bad as I thought he'd be, which Snapper's almost really? I'm actually kind of surprised you'd have that perspective on it. But it's yeah, because considering how everything ended when he was oh, here's this watch, and Taehoon just left, it's oh, he isn't just complete, he can be a dick, but he's not complete monster. Paco is completely irredeemable, but it's there's something with Taehoon, and Hobin saw that, and I guess as someone who spent so much time being bullied, so he'd be able to kind of recognize those signs. But that immediately disappeared the moment Snapper was honestly, the problem is after our fight, everyone just kept going on about how sexy and hot Taehoon was, and it's yeah, if he started a YouTube channel right now, he'd probably easily get 200 subscribers. And then immediately Hobin's nah, take back what I said, Taehoon is a piece of shit, and starts tearing up, because it's once again, especially when it's your own audience talking about someone else, it's hey, this guy was a bully, you were all on my side to beat him up until you all realize how hot he was, and it's no, you're my audience, not his, so there's a little bit of that to it. So we also get introduced to another character this episode, and that's Monkey, who practices, I've only seen the word spelled out, it's Caecilium. I'm probably butchering that, it just might be Cerium, the first S might not be pronounced, but it's Korean wrestling. And he has 7 subscribers, and he thinks that if he can take down Viral Hit, then maybe he'll get a whole bunch of subscribers. He's also very much into ladies. He's taken an interest most recently into Boomy, where he wants her number, but she's kind of nah, dude, she doesn't know how to really turn him down the proper way. And she starts thinking about the fact that the last time she was in this situation was with Paco a couple episodes back, but Hobin was there to kind of rectify that situation. That might have been specifically episode 1, if I remember correctly. And she kind of, it's so interesting because Hobin's afraid to be around Boomy because it's right, she saw a shameful side of myself and I'm too embarrassed to be around her. Whereas Boomy is internalizing that whole situation and kind of blaming herself, because she's right, Hobin was there for me when I was in a situation, but she feels when he was there, she feels like she abandoned him. I mean, to be fair, Moon Seong told you to do that, and it's right, you being around probably would have caused more harm than good, just because Hobin wouldn't have been in a position to really hear you, or but to be fair, it's not she abandoned him, she smacked Paco, but that also hurt Hobin's pride, where it's right, I'm the one that's supposed to be the fighter, and once again he got complacent, but it's yeah, she stuck up for me. It took her, she had the courage to stand up and fight back against Paco, but I didn't. I just took it on the chin, So it's just the interesting dichotomy between both of them, how they've kind of internalized that situation. She's pissed at Hobin, obviously, and has every right to be. It's actually Moon Seong that actually convinced Hobin to talk to Boomy. It's right, he's I completely understand why, but she doesn't deserve to be ghosted. So he's right, you're right. Especially because we also got introduced to the comedy crew. I completely forgot their name, but it's it's playing into the whole pranksters on YouTube thing, which I'm oh, it's so interesting, where you're once again, it's that thing of it's not really inside baseball, because a lot of stuff gets tons and tons of views, so it's not it's an unknown commodity. But there was a certain era of YouTube that really let that whole lane of YouTube content ran rampant. So I mean, it's still there, I'm sure, but it's I don't feel I come across it nearly as much. But I mean, I know it's there. It probably doesn't always just aggregate to YouTube. I mean, there's so many other social media platforms that can pop up on now. But either way, the comedy crew was messing with Gao, because they're picking on the fact that, once again, she has a very old-timey way of talking, and they were bothering her and picking on her. And Snapper tried to come in and be cool. I'd almost wonder just because of the way he was laying face down near the door. I was like, did he just fall? I was like, no, they beat him up. But it's like, he tried to come in to be so cool. And it's like, no, he's useless in a fight. So we even have Gao trying to use all the stuff that Hoban uses in the fight. Like, proving that it does work because they're ridiculing the viral hit fight, with Taehoon saying like, oh, it's probably like scripted or whatever. Like, yo, that whole thing was faked. It's set up. It's like none of that actually works in real life and stuff, which obviously, once again, it's interesting why Gao takes such offense to that. It's like, oh, is she taking offense on that because of Hoban, or is there some other reason for that? I wonder. So I love stuff like that because I'm like, once again, like that line of dialogue might be straight out of the webtoon, but now it's like, oh, once again, you contextualize stuff with future stuff where you're like, oh, it makes sense, like why that in particular would irritate you, to the point she even was like pouting later on. She's like, yeah, they made fun of, like, for her, it's not even being made fun of specifically. It's about them making fun of how to get hit without getting hurt, like them ridiculing that. Because like for her, it's like all the moves Hoban was using is like, you're ridiculing them, but they are moves that, like, a pro fighter could use too. So, but Hoban did try to step up, and that speaks volumes about who he is. Like, he would have never like done that before all the Paco stuff. It's like he would have just was again taken it on the chin, but now it's like, no, he sticks up for his friends. But it's also like, yeah, these first years are bigger than you. And so he tries to pull the Taehoon of like, do you have 100 yen? They hand it to him and they're like, laugh at him. It's like, oh, he thought he could pull that off. It's like, nah, Taehoon's the only one that could do that. So they kind of walked away ridiculed, and Hoban was about to do his thing. Who knows how that would have gone at this point, but didn't have to worry about it because Moon Seong showed up, and it's like, yeah, he's enough to kind of quarrel any situation. So, well, quell any situation, I think is the word I was looking for. Either way. So now it's kind of like, I love Hoban's perspective when I'm like, man, I should just like bring Museong around with me like all the time to diffuse any situation. But they're like, yeah, he beat up Paco, but didn't do anything to the comedy crew. And Gao's perspective is, well, he probably like chooses to not, like, he only uses violence when it's 100% necessary. Because he didn't really do it against Paco like the first go round when he scared Paco. But he did it in episode 4, the humiliation episode, just because it's like, well, it's not, because it wasn't just about Hoban in that moment. It was also because, like, you're messing with his friend Boomy. So that added an extra layer to it. Like, yeah, I gotta, gotta smack some damn sense into you type of situation because you're going so far. But anyway, circling back to it, Hoban and Snapper kind of go at it a little bit, just because Snapper's like, are you really going to take that lying down? Like, you didn't really do anything. Like, they were ridiculing and bullying Gao. Like, you need to get up and do something. He's like, well, what about you? He's like, well, at least I was trying something. But it's like, oh, so I'm going to, but Hoban's like, oh, I'm going to do something now. And he's like, oh, because of Gao? He's like, no, because they ridiculed how to get hit without getting hurt. And he's like, it's okay, Gao, like, he basically, Hoban was like, yeah, we'll figure this situation out. And this is where it really starts. There's been hints to it beforehand, but this is the episode that really showcases how Gao has a major crush on Hoban. So, and obviously playing into the fact is he's completely unaware of it, which is sad because, as we can see, like, he's obviously into Boomy, unaware that Gao's into him, but Gao's completely unaware the fact is that Snapper's into her. So it's like that line of crushing and liking someone who, like, unrequited love almost type of situation to some extent. Which we did have Hoban visiting Boomy, and she was not so receptive. She's like, oh, we don't serve strawberry parfaits here anymore. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's been a while. And she gives him all the ingredients for it. It's kind of like, yeah, go ahead and make it yourself. And she was kind of being very mean to him. He's like, oh, she's super angry. But he's like, yeah, I ghosted her for like 2 months. No matter what my reasons are, it still wasn't nice. But he's like, at the end of the day, like, she did give me the ingredients for this, so I should just not let it go to waste. But then Boomy saw, like, on his hand, like, he wrote down everything. It's like, right, say you're sorry, ask for a strawberry parfait that you guys didn't get to finish last time, and just, like, he's written stuff out. And for her, she kind of laughs and giggles because she's like, wow, because, Hoban can be very endearing in a pathetic way, in a very sweet way, sometimes in a very pathetic, loserish way. But she's kind of like, no, like, kind of like, you, almost like, you idiot, I'm not, like, laughing or whatever. And he's like, oh, but you did, we're good, okay? But But then she's like, yeah, like, oh, and by the way, I heard you hired an editor. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, and it's a girl too. And he's almost like, wait, what, right? Was hiring an editor a bad thing? It's like, oh, is she cute? And it's like, oh, like he's telling her stuff. It's like, oh, her name's like gal and this and that. It's like, oh, is she cute? And we're just like, I love once again seeing a different, because I think you can go into this having your preconceived notion of what Bumi's character is. I've talked about that. Like, you know, characters have their arcs, but it's like she's a very specific archetype initially where you're like, oh, she's a cute love interest that you're just kind of like, once again, the unrequited love thing where it's just kind of like, oh, well, for one, I mean, well, a lot of anime relationships turn into that. Not all of them, but a lot of them, that unrequited love of like, oh, you're into this person, but they're into you too. Like, Hoban's never realized that Bumi has been into him. And once again, as the series progresses, you explore that a little bit more and find out some more interesting details about that. But the fact is, isn't just one-sided. It's not just like, oh, Hoban likes her. Like, we had the exploration in the show so far of Bumi also likes him too. He's just kind of completely unaware of it. But it's like, yeah, seeing the fact that she's the jealous side, where she's like, oh, you hired a girl editor. Is she cute? Where it's like, because it's understandable too, because it's like, cool, you ghosted me for like 2 months. Is it because you found a cute editor to be around? Could you rather be around her than me? Bumi doesn't really go into that, but, you know, there's underlining text where you can kind of feel that way. And it's like, I even love Hoban being like, holy shit, Bumi's scarier than Taehoon in this moment, because he's like, yeah, she's smiling, but she's also scary, because it's like, yeah, like I said, you wouldn't think that'd be part of her archetype, like of that character. I thought that was kind of like a little I mean, maybe the argument, maybe I'm giving it too much credit or something like that, kind of underestimating it, you know, being like, oh, this is the only character that's like that. No, but it's like, I think your preconceived, like, maybe it's also based on my own preconceived notions of who Bumi would be, and then you read more and more of the webs, and you're like, oh, the character goes in a direction, she has elements to her where you're like, oh, there's a little bit something else there in Bumi, which I wasn't expecting to be part of her personality, which adds just to, like, her charm and her cuteness, and just, especially with the pairing of her and Hoban, like, how, like, that side of her, like, how that works alongside Hoban, you know? I'm actually going to say, like, I actually don't know if her and Hoban get together at the end of the series. Once again, the series is done, but I don't know if they get together. I'd assume so, but... Because she's, like, the main... She's, like, number one waifu, like, you know, number one love interest, so... I mean, in a lot of ways, the sad thing is she's kind of the only love interest, because, like, once again, Hoban doesn't look... Kind of spoiler, he doesn't look any... Like, how, like... No other, like, potential love interest in this series gets the same limelight that Bumi does in Hoban's eyes, because he's kind of completely unaware of, like, any girls that pop up that might have feelings for him. He's completely, like, because he's dense, he doesn't realize it, you know, main shonen protagonist type of shit, right? So, well, it might not just be shonen related, it's heavily in shonen, but just, you know, all anime protagonist situations. But either way, it was actually funny enough, Gao, who ended up diffusing that situation, because she showed up being like, oh no, you heard her, Hoban, like, am I cute or not? And he's like, of course you're cute, you're the most popular person at school. I think he was trying to hype her up, just to be like, oh yeah, like, we're outside. Either that was that, I mean, it, because he was almost like, oh wait, why are you here? Like, you did ask why I was there. Did you come all the way here just to talk to me about something? But the fact is that I think he was just trying to hype her up in that moment. I don't think that part was just in her head. I think it was, because we've seen, like, what her dramatization of stuff is. Because I love that when she got home, she was so, like, giddy, like, oh my god, Hoban's so cool. And especially when she's beating up her, like, her stuffed pillow thing or whatever. And I love that it's like, you could see its expression change when she's punching it against the wall. You could see it staring at her like, Jesus, lady, calm down. I love little details like that. But she's so excited and excited to text him. So it's like the mirror image to how Hoban acts when he was able to start texting Bumi for the first time. It's the same energy, exactly. But that's also what makes Gao and, like, Hoban so interesting, because, like, they're very similar, like, you know, short-statured, kind of, like, I mean, Gao's a little more loud, and, like, she can be more confident in some capacities than Hoban, but she can be just as lack of self-esteem as Hoban can be in some cases. So, But yeah, she came through and was just kind of like, nah, there's nothing going on between me and Hoban. It's like, yo, he all he does is talk about you. He made this excuse to talk about you. Hoban's like, what are you saying, gal? But it's like, yeah, she played wingman here. But even Boomy was kind of taken back, like, wow, she is cute. And I think Boomy's kind of picked on it, like, oh, like when she's seeing her walk away, it's almost like a, because I guess she probably sees a lot of herself in Gal, where it's like, oh, like you're into him too, aren't you? Because Gal just kind of bows out. She even pulls to Hoban, like, yeah, ingrown toenail. And she's like, oh, so this is what it's like to be on that. Use that as an excuse. Even later on, walking home, trying to sing. Which I love that she was like, right, like things she's got to work on her to-do list. Fix the way she speaks so she's not speaking so old-timey and not just to bust out in songs randomly. It's, you know? I mean, that's what makes our trio so good, because they are a band of, they are losers in their own capacities. They're not cool, but they try to be cool. They're so dorky, especially Hoban and Snapper. But yeah, like even Gal, when she was just kind of upset thinking about what happened between Boomy and Hoban, she kicks like a light pole or something and actually hurts her foot. It's like stuff like that's hilarious. But yeah, like Boomy and Hoban are in a better place because she's like, hey, you can text me and everything too going forward, because of Gal playing wingman and also seeing how apologetic Hoban is, like how he was thinking about her. It's not like she didn't wasn't on his mind at all. So, but then at the very end of the episode, we have her having her run in with the comedy crew, which she like hurts her ankle because they scared her. It's like, right. And they're like, oh yeah, can we use you for content? And they didn't, and as you noticed, didn't bother like asking, like they asked, but they were like, okay, you're gonna love the edited version, yada yada. It was like, you didn't really get her permission, because she's like, wait, video? What are you talking about? Like her only real experience with YouTube is like, it's like, oh, YouTube. It's like, oh yeah, that's that thing Hoban does. Like she probably watched stuff up there, but she's never been was ingratiated the word I'm looking for? Maybe. She's not as well versed in it. Only like her only experience from what we've seen so far is just her like checking out Hoban's like viral hit stuff. So, but yeah, like as I talked about in a previous episode, because I saw the preview, the comedy crew stuff. I think I talked about this in the last episode, but the comedy crew stuff is the stuff I was thinking about. Like I said, I thought webtoon-wise, I thought that happened before the Taehoon fight, but made like before the Taehoon like arc. Not even just the fight itself, but like before we even got introduced to Taehoon, I thought that happened. But I guess it happens post. Not unless they moved that around. Like I was having that same argument last episode, but I'm like, I'm assuming that's just the way it went into the webtoon as well in that exact order. So, but obviously they're the next thing to deal with. But also we also got introduced to our other threat, Mangi. So two parallel things happening at the same time. So I'm interested to see, once again, interested to see where the next episode takes us, but I already have an idea. That's going to be interesting to see another character's exploration, like, because that character, I'm like, man, I could have sworn they were in the story way more up at this point, but maybe they weren't. I feel like this next story beat is going to be like our first time like really getting, like, I think this is going to be where that character stops being kind of like, because the character's only popped up like a few like minutes or seconds in an episode, and that's only been like a handful of times. But like next episode will probably be a bigger episode, and we kind of go from there. So only 3 episodes left, but I need to stop saying that, because before I turn around and find out like, oh, actually there's going to be more than 12 episodes. So that's why I need to stop. But I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with the whole comedy crew angle, especially because Hoban's extra motivated to deal with them now that it's like, yo, you caused some harm to Boomy. I mean, she was literally in the middle of the street because of your prank and a car speeding her way. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where the comedy crew and the Mangi storylines end up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.